Alright folks, here we are again on this patio that we have been laying and laboring over now for a few days. As you can see, we've made some progress, getting into a little bit of a tricky section now and the main patio at the back. So this area was just laid this morning, and this area was laid the other day, complete with cuts and all. Now with the cuts, you can see we laid our borders first and we made cuts with a chop saw, the diamond blade, and you can get at any home store. Got them exact. There's a couple little small gaps you can see that still need to be filled, but you can get the general idea of how you do the cuts. We usually mark them with a pencil, and that way we can be pretty exact. With the felt, sometimes felt markers, the residue is left on after you're done the cut, so it kind of stains the brick, so that's why we use pencil. Now here we are again with more patio being laid, and the point of this video is to show you kind of a little bit of a tricky section here. What we've done is we've laid string lines to get our levels here. Now the important part with these levels is there's a couple crucial spots that we got to be careful of. The first one is right over here. That little concrete section, we have to hit that level with our bricks. And secondly, the door, we have to hit that level with our bricks. Now the thing you have to take into consideration is that the bricks have to be sloped away from the house. So our recommendation for a patio, which is kind of a large flat area is what I define as a patio, is you want about a 2% grade and no more than a 2% grade. Up on that path you saw, that was a pathway, so we got away with a little bit more. That was about a 15 to 20% grade, and that's definitely max. You want to go for a grade in that area. But for this patio area, it gets tricky because you can only work with a 2% grade, and that is essentially 1 inch over 4 feet of a slope. So how we do that is using these strings. Now we've set rebar everywhere. You can see a piece of rebar right there, and the string goes all the way along. You can see it going up against the house, and you can see the house is level, and you can see the string is slanted. And that is just over a 2% grade, and the only reason why we went over to 2% grade there was due to the fact of these 2 points. We had to hit the point on the door that you can see on the right of the screen, and we had to hit the point of the concrete on the left side of the screen. So we opted to just shoot that line as long as possible and get rid of the grade there. Now what else we've done is we've taken the grade and we've sloped it away from the house roughly 1 inch every 4 feet. Now that on your line level, which is what we use on these lines, it's a little tiny little level that dangles and hooks onto the lines. That's about a quarter of a bubble slope. And this is our crucial slope right here. That piece of rebar all the way to the doorway. So that is pretty much what the whole patio is built off of, because we definitely want to make sure there's no water sloping into the house when it rains. So with that, you want to match it all together. Now you can see using our screed poles, we have to do this in sections. So the trick is getting all these different grades together and making sure that it doesn't look like the patio has defined screeded sections. You want it to all blend in. Now this part was a whole other ball game, because we have a level planter, and as you can see, we want the patio to go roughly with the lines of the planter. Now this is a rule you don't really have to follow, but it looks a lot better. So what we've done is we've gone level side to side, and to take care of the water, we've sloped the patio away from the planter, so the water will just go on the grass, and this will end up being a grass area. But yeah, so you can see from the bricks of the planter, the patio is laid roughly a 2% grade away from the planter. So any water that just hits that pathway will just come right off and come right into this. Well, right now it's a hole, but it will be grass. Then it's level, 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 and we'll be pretty much level right till we hit the door, right at the corner of the door right there. And in that rebar, we're going to see a transition, and that's where we start shooting up. Now the goal, and it will be impossible to make it unseen to the trained eye, but the goal is to make it as mellow as possible so that you don't really notice it. Because unfortunately, ideally, this concrete would have been poured a little bit lower than it is, but it's not, and not every situation is perfect. But the rule of thumb you gotta follow is water has to slope away from the house. So on top of this will be our high point of the whole patio, and water will slope away from the house. Now, one other factor that we had to take into consideration was this area over here, and this area is fairly high. So what we opted to do is slope everything away from the house. So this next line that we have right here is about a 2% grade away from there, and we're going to slope everything 2% away from the house. But then as well, we have a slight grade going from this end due to the height of this out here. We wouldn't have to do this in a normal yard if this back end of the fence was low. We could just slope it straight out and all the moisture would go to the back of the property. But the problem is it's too high back here, so that's not going to happen. So what we have to do is we've opted to take all the drainage to this corner of the yard over here. And this is level, but we can get away with that. Sorry, the pathway is level side to side, but we can get away with that because we can just slope our grass where we want it once we install it. But the final grade of the yard, patio, and everything will be sloped to this corner. And you can see with the neighbor's yard, we've had to, this was high before as well, but we had to dig it down a little bit so that we have a place for the water to drain. And right where those boulders are, that'll be the low point. And as long as you have gravity in your favor, water will go where you want it to go. But if things aren't sloped correctly, you'll get pooling and other issues. Now, if we could not dig down this neighbor's yard, the next option would be to build a dry well, which is what we do is dig a giant hole right here or somewhere in the yard and fill it with drain rock and then fabric over top of the drain rock, and over top of that fabric we could plant grass or whatever, but we'd have to make sure that dry well was our low point of the yard. But in this case we can drain it right out of the yard, and that's what you want to do ideally. Now you can see all our downspouts, which is where you get 90% of your water from, roofs and stuff like that, are tied into weeping tile. And this downspout hasn't been tied in yet, but this is going to be taken right to the edge of the property, and it's going to go right to the end close to the garden, actually probably right where this pile of dirt is, and it will be able to safely move from the surface out to the end of the property. So that is how grades are done, and whether it's a patio or not, grass will absorb some water, patios and roofs won't, so you got to make sure that you're graded properly. The thing about grass too is if there's a hill on the grass, water will travel on the surface until it hits a low point. So you just got to make sure that your water has a place to go. Otherwise, water can be very, very damaging, and you can't control water. Or sorry, you can't mitigate the effects of water. All you got to do is control where it goes and take it to a safe spot so it doesn't harm things like structures and patios. And you get dips in your patios, etc., etc. You got to watch out for that. That is a smooth sheet, because over time, if you have small little sinkholes in your patio, they'll get worse as water will pool in that area and it will go down underneath the patio, ruining the stability even more. But anyways, this has been a lesson on drainage, and hopefully this helps you out.